Hello everyone. All right, let's do this. A couple weeks ago, I went out and bought the new D&D Players Handbook 2024 Wizards of the Coast official product. There was a little bit of a strange experience that I had when I got this. Usually when I buy a D&D book, I immediately start reading it at the game store, or I go right home and look through the book with great interest and curiosity. That didn't happen when I bought this. I flipped through it just a little bit at the gaming store. I didn't particularly like the art style. Maybe I'll get into that later. But I brought it home and I just set it on my stand, and it lay there for a couple weeks. I guess part of it is that I was just so busy, but I really just wasn't feeling very inspired. I wasn't feeling very motivated. It was a really strange feeling. I've never had that experience before with a D&D book. And maybe I was somewhat dreading what I might find in here. But anyways, I've just started looking through this. I've only looked through just a tiny, tiny sliver of this. And I figured, you know what? Let's do a ranking. And in fact, let's do a review, a breakdown of the Wizard class. Why not? Wizards of the Coast, brand new product. Let's do a review. So I'm going to be looking at the Wizard class. You're going to be getting my first impression. I'll do what I've classically done, where I will rate the different class features, F up through S tier, and let's see. And there'll probably be some of the miscellaneous things that I talk about as I go through this. Well, I made this video some time back where I made some predictions about these new D&D books, and the little bit that I flipped through, it pretty much echoes what I don't know if predicted is the right word, but I observed the trends of how things were going, and that's what it seemed like was going to happen. And it does seem to be what I talked about in that video. There is some good, there is some so-so, and there's some bad. There are some things in here already, just in my brief looking through, that I can tell are improvements. They have improved and made certain things better, both in terms of class features, in terms of the layout, in terms of the structures of some things. Some of the spells are better. Again, what I've done is just kind of browsed it a little bit. Other things I wouldn't call them solidly better. They're just maybe a remix. They're just kind of a slightly different take or a different approach. Maybe they're slightly better, or maybe they're just a little bit different, and that also might come with some kind of trade-off at the same time, so it's kind of a wash in the end. And then there are other things in here that I didn't like. I thought they were dumb changes. I thought they were annoying. So mixed bag. But let's see. I really haven't looked through this in depth, so I can't really make a super strong assessment or claim some kind of major opinion until I actually go through it and take a look. So here we are. Wizard, a scholarly magic user of arcane power. So looking at the initial wizard illustration, I do think it's cool how they're doing these full page art pieces for each of the classes at the beginning of each class's section. The art style really isn't quite my cup of tea. It's a bit over busy. It's a bit like too modern looking. It's more pop, but I can see why Wizards of the Coast is going this direction with their art style. They're trying to have a pop culture appeal, a broader appeal, and they're a business, so they're trying to sell books. And just before I get into the nitty gritty of stuff, what this new edition is it's not really a new edition. A lot of people are calling it 5.5. I think that's a good way to describe it. It's still 5e, it's compatible. A lot of things are the same. It runs on the same operating system. There are just tweaks, little fiddlings all over the place. The core wizard traits. Primary ability is intelligence, hit point die, hit point die. That is an awkward thing to say. It is a D6 per wizard level as previously, so maybe I can call it a D tier, just in terms of strength or how good it is, because you're weak. Yeah, well, there's nothing new there. Mages usually are physically weak. Saving throw proficiencies, intelligence, and wisdom. Wisdom, of course, is a great one to be proficient in, as things that require wisdom saving throws are usually mind control, charms, dominations, just stuff that really screws with your character, fear. Intelligence saving throws are pretty rare, but the effects tend to be pretty nasty ones. Things like an intellect devour or the maze spell or I think some illusions have intelligence saving throws. So the saving throw proficiencies, maybe A tier, probably B tier, I'd say. Skill proficiencies, you get to choose 2 from Arcana, History, Insight, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, or Religion. Definitely plays into the wizardly, scholarly, lore keeper, studious theme. Makes sense, very knowledge-based. Nothing to get super excited about, just kind of, good and decent and medium. So I'd give it a C tier. Weapon proficiencies, simple weapons. So this is the first time I've ever seen in D&D the wizard class have proficiency with all simple weapons. Usually it's just a few, like a quarterstaff, dagger, then maybe a light crossbow in there. Just a small specific list. I can see why Wizards of the Coast would want to just simplify that and say, well, it's close enough to all simple weapons, let's do all simple weapons. On the other hand, it is a little odd for Wizards to be getting more weapon proficiencies. That does not, to me, evoke wizardry or wizardliness. Anyhow, just in terms of effectiveness, I'd say that's probably D tier, just having simple weapons. Armor training, none. F tier there, but again, that's classic for a wizard. You're not someone who practices or trains in armor. Starting equipment, choose A or B. A, 2 daggers, an arcane focus such as a quarterstaff, robe, spellbook, scholar's pack, and 5 gold pieces. Or B, 55 gold pieces. I like what they've done with the equipment here. It was a slightly clunky the previous way where there was those different bullet points and each bullet point was a choose A or B or choose A, B, or C. This is just faster and simpler, or just take the gold and spin it how you want. So I think that they've gone, the two, like probably the best of both worlds. Either you're wanting to make your character quickly, so just pick the simple option A and you're good to go with that, or you want to spend the time and, really select these custom things to perfectly equip your unique character, so then go with option B, just get your gold and buy what you want. So I think that was a good call there. Otherwise, the starting equipment is just basic starting equipment for a first level character. Not amazing, not terrible, I'll give it a B tier. All right, let's get into some lore. Wizards are defined by their exhaustive study of magic's inner workings. They cast spells of explosive fire, arcing lightning, etc., illusions, transformations, conjurations, other planes of existence, glimpsing the future, protective barriers. Their mightiest spells can change one substance into another, call down meteors, open portals to other worlds. Most wizards share a scholarly approach to magic. They examine theoretical underpinnings, particularly like categorizing spells. Renowned wizards such as Bigby, Tasha, Mordenkainen, and Yolande, there's no accent mark over the E, Yolande, have built on their studies to invent iconic spells now used across the multiverse. I'm not a fan of multiverses personally. I might make a video explaining why that is, but I think they're just kind of a hodgepodge. If you're a serious writer, they're sort of a nightmare to have to deal with. They really strike me as just the next thing, like next corporate thing, next thing that sells. Let's try this, everyone. Let's just put the rainbow diarrhea multiverse kitchen sink hodgepodge everything together and try to market it through any pop culture avenue you can. Amazon's, Disney's, Marvel's, Dungeons & Dragons' Legends of the Multiverse. The closest a wizard is likely to come to an ordinary life is working as a sage or lecturer. Working as a sage. So, I'm confused why the book is using sage in this way. I also noticed in the backgrounds, sage is a background. Also in the 2014 Player's Handbook, sage is a background. That's not what sage means. You're not like, oh, before I even made it to level 1, like back when I was in high school, back when I was in college, I worked as a sage. A sage is like a transcendent being that the highest level wizards and priests and oracles would consult them. A sage is almost like an in-between level between a mortal and a god. I think what they're meaning to say here instead of sage would be like lore keeper or scholar. Other wizards sell their services as advisors, serve in military forces, or pursue lives of crime or domination. But the lure of knowledge calls even the most unadventurous wizards from the safety of their libraries and laboratories into crumbling ruins and lost cities. Most wizards believe that their counterparts in ancient civilizations knew secrets of magic that have been lost to the ages, and discovering these secrets could unlock the path to a power greater than any magic available in the present age. So the lore is decent enough. I'd say that pretty well describes a wizard, or at least a Dungeons & Dragons wizard. Not amazing, not terrible, serves its purpose well enough. What do I think that's the lore there is maybe a B tier? Wizard class features. Level 1, spellcasting. All right, is there anything different about the spellcasting compared to 2014? You start off knowing 3 wizard cantrips of your choice. I think that's the same. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can replace one of your cantrips from this feature with another wizard cantrip of your choice. Huh. So it's not clear if what this is trying to say is that your cantrips now are like something in your spell book, and how like you prepare your typical spells, like first level and above spells, you also prepare your cantrips. It doesn't say that. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I guess from like a verisimilitude perspective of, you know, things making sense and being coherent and having good lore, I don't really like it. But like just from a pure gamer sense, it's cool. The flexibility of it, the ability to, you know, try something out. I want to try this spell out now. That's exciting. I can understand why Wizards of the Coast made that choice. So this is weird. D&D has always used numbers in the ordinal, written in the ordinal sense, like 4th level, 10th level. And that also helps break it up from other numbers in the book, which are, you know, cardinal counted numbers, which are used for quantities of things, because quantities get used a lot in D&D, or, you know, math and bonuses and stuff. So that's strange. It does make it feel a little bit more modern and video gamey. That's a general feeling, a general trend I keep getting the more I look through this book. It feels more modern instead of an old world or an ancient world or a medieval world. It feels more, you know, trendy and video gamey as opposed to, you know, the classic tabletop experience. Small nitpick, just kind of like a weird little, I don't know if I'd call it a red flag, maybe it is, just something that I notice and just go, So at wizard levels 4 and 10, you learn another wizard cantrip of your choice. So the spellbook seems pretty much the same as the 2014 one. One small change here I'm noticing, your spellbook can only be read by you or someone casting Identify. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I found the bit about expanding and replacing your spellbook. It's actually its own sidebar, which was probably a good idea. And in terms of finding other spellbooks or spell scrolls and then copying those spells into your spellbook so you kind of, you know, master the art of how to use those, it all seems the same, except now if you copy a spell in from a spell scroll, there's no verbiage saying that the spell scroll gets used up. So I guess there's a little improvement or a little upgrade there. The number of spell slots is the same. There's no change there. So, you know, still a full caster and has a good amount of spell slots. Another change I'm noticing is with your prepared spells. Instead of preparing a number of spells, you know, equal to your wizard level plus your intelligence modifier, there is now a column on the class table here that just gives you a set number of spells that you have prepared. In fact, as I peruse through here, I noticed that every single spellcaster now has prepared spells. There's no more of that, like, you're a spontaneous caster, you just know these spells, for like the bard and the sorcerer, for example. Otherwise, the spellcasting feature is pretty much the same, pretty much identical to the 2014 iteration of the wizard. S tier. This feature is incredible. You can do so much with your spells. Level 1, Ritual Adept. You can cast any spell as a ritual if that spell has the ritual tag and the spell's in your spell book. You needn't have the spell prepared, but you must read from the book to cast the spell in this way. So that seems to be the exact same as the previous version of the wizard. As you might be familiar, certain spells have the ritual subtype or ritual tag, and if you cast the spell as a ritual, you spend an additional 10 minutes doing this long ritual process and repetitions, but your character does not expend a spell slot, which is a great upside to casting it as a ritual. I just checked, the ritual rule says that you need to have a spell prepared in order to cast it as a ritual. So the wizard has an upgrade here, and the wizard has always had this upgrade in 5e, that you don't actually have to have it prepared. As long as it's just in your spell book and you just read from your spell book, you can cast any of your ritual spells. I give this an S tier. The wizard is like the king of ritual magic, and you can find all kinds of ritual spells and add them into your book, theoretically, potentially, but you can accomplish so many great effects with rituals, and it gives magic, gives spell casting in D&D another layer, like a bit of depth to them that I really appreciate. Something that I love about D&D, which sets it apart from video games, that there are all these really interesting, unique effects that you can produce with magic beyond just your typical combat stuff where you blow something up with fire, or you heal somebody, or you start flying really fast for a little bit. Things like the alarm spell, comprehend languages, detect magic, find familiar, identify, illusory script, unseen servant, tensor's floating disc, gentle repose, magic mouth, augury is a great one, phantom steed, divination, tiny hut. There's all kinds of really interesting and very effective and flavorful ritual spells, and the wizard is like the top, the master of ritual magic. Also level 1, arcane recovery, which I think this is the same. You can regain some of your magical energy by studying your spell book. When you finish a short rest, you can choose expended spell slots to recover. Spell slots can have a combined level no more than half your wizard level, and you can do this once per long rest. A small little nitpick of mine, and I was hoping they were going to make this improvement with this new book, and this is a formatting and a practicality point. So in the original Player's Handbook and all throughout the 5th edition books, all your class features start off with this awkward phrase where it's like, at first level, you get such. By the time you reach 3rd level, you get such. When you come upon 5th level, you have to always find ways, the writers have to always find ways to introduce every class feature's text with this, when you get to whatever level. Instead, in this book, they've just put right at the beginning of the feature's name, level 1, Ritual Adept. Level 3, Wizard Subclass. Something that I made it a point to do with my most recent 5e book, Monstrous Heroes, is that the name of each class feature had that level that you gain the class feature right in there. So they put it in front. They've put like level 1 arcane recovery. I would do like resilience 1st level. Another thing I did was if a feature had like a usage limit, I would also put that right under the name. So it's like resilience 1st level, bold, usage limit once per short rest, 1/short rest. They did not do that in this book, and I wish they would have, because again, you have to read into the paragraph and find, usually it's at the bottom, but not always. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. Like, why put all those words and have that additional sentence that you have to read through when you could just put at the top, usage limit, once per long rest. Anyhow, arcane recovery is a good feature. It's always great to get some spell slots back in the middle of a dungeon, especially if it's a particularly challenging one. I give it A tier. Level 2, Scholar. While studying magic, you also specialized in another field of study. Choose one of the following skills in which you have proficiency: Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, or Religion. You have expertise in the chosen skill, so you get double your proficiency bonus in that skill. And I guess that's just the same class skill list of the wizard. Great, makes total sense. I always thought it was the weirdest thing that a wizard, by himself could not have or would not have expertise with Arcana. The rogue could be better with Arcana than the wizard, being right at 1st level, the rogue gets expertise. Now this is a minor feature, so I can't really rate it that high, but it is good. I'm gonna give it a B tier. Thumbs up. Way to go, Wizards of the Coast. That makes a lot of sense. That seems to be the only thing you get at 2nd level. Level 3, Wizard Subclass. You gain a Wizard subclass of your choice. Abjurer, Diviner, Evoker, and Illusionist subclasses are detailed in this book here. So a change they've made with this 2024 Player's Handbook is that every single class gets the subclass options at 3rd level. No more are there some classes that get it at 1st or 2nd level. And also every single class has 4 subclass options, whereas before some would have 2, some would have 3, some would have 4. The cleric and with all the domains, and the wizard with all the different spell schools had a lot more. Do I think that's a good idea? Well, it's pro and con. On the upside, everyone is equalized now, and everyone has the same amount of options, and everyone knows when you're going to get your subclass, and maybe there's something that's not quite as exploitable through multi-class dipping. But on the downside, if things are too standardized, too equalized, too made the same, it's kind of boring. It's all samey, too predictable, it's too mechanical. It also can cause some problems from a design standpoint, because sometimes you really would need a class that gets the class features at 1st or 2nd level. It makes a lot of sense that a cleric would select the domain at 1st level, or the wizard the spell school that she specializes in at 1st level. Now, of course, you could make the option, yeah, but the wizard needs to learn more first before going into a specialization, or the cleric needs to raise in divine power and maybe a higher rank in the clergy first before receiving the right of investiture to have the actual domain power. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. That does make sense, but I could also see the other side of that making just as much sense. It's sort of like someone going into college. Some people know right off the bat what they want their major to be. They already have an area of interest. They've been working toward that their entire life. And then other people don't have such a solid idea. They're going to go and do some generalized learning first, kind of test the waters. You can make the same analogy with learning a musical style as opposed to just general music theory, to developing specific art techniques as opposed to just generalized art techniques. So me personally, I tend to avoid things being too standardized. If things are too standardized and too formulaic, for me, it kind of kills the organic and magical nature of the game. Anyhow, we'll look at the subclass stuff after we do the general wizard features. 4th level, ability score improvement. You gain the ability score improvement feat or another feat of your choice for which you qualify. You gain this feature again at levels 8, 12, and 16. So the levels in which you get this are exactly the same. So ability score improvement is now a feat. I'm here in the feat sections, and they are separated between origin feats, general feats, and fighting style feats, and epic boon feats, which this reminds me of 3rd edition and 4th edition. They would separate their feats into different feat categories. Ability score improvement. Increase 1 ability score of your choice by 2, or 2 ability scores of your choice by 1 each. This feat can't increase an ability score above 20. Repeatable, you can take this feat more than once. Okay, so that the actual effect of it is still the same. They're just considering it a feat now. And I'm looking at these other general feats, and they seem to all increase an ability score by 1. Athlete, charger, chef, dual wielder. Yeah, they all do. So all of the general feats, they increase 1 ability score or another. Like it gives you a choice between 2 or 3. Actually, there's some that don't give you a choice. Like Great Weapon Master, your strength increases by 1. So they all increase an ability score by 1, but you have kind of limited options, or options that fit the flavor of the feat, fit the theme of the feat. A major change then is that feats are no longer optional. I always thought that was really weird, making feats optional, when the vast majority of games out there, feats were not optional. That's been a normal part of D&D since 2000. I do find it a little weird that all of these general feats all give you a +1. Yeah, even Shadow Touched and Fey Touched are still in here, like those feats from, what were those from, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything? Really powerful feats, still increasing an ability score by 1. I see a lot of people gonna go with the feats. There's just so much to them. Now, I can tell that a few of them have been modified and revised, so that would really be its own video where I would have to look through the individual feats and give my assessment of them. So ability score improvement, I'm gonna have to give it an A tier. Very helpful, great feature, just kind of a core baseline feature that all characters rely upon. The way that they're doing the feat thing is, I mean, it's good, it's effective. People probably are gonna like it. Do I think it's the very best of the best way to handle it? I'm not convinced, so I'm not going to do an S tier on this, but I will say A tier, so very, very good. Level 5, Memorize Spell. Whenever you finish a short rest, you can study your spell book and replace one of the level 1+, that's an awkward way of putting that, replace one of the level 1+ wizard spells you have prepared for your spell casting feature with another level 1+ spell from the book. I do not like the way that's written. I understand what it's saying after I've read it a couple times. Basically, it's saying after every short rest, you can swap out one of the spells you have prepared. Level 18, Spell Mastery. You have achieved such mastery over certain spells that you can cast them at will. Choose a level 1 and a level 2 spell in your spell book that have a casting time of an action. You always have those spells prepared, and you can cast them at their lowest level without expending a spell slot. To cast either spell at a higher level, you must expend a spell slot. That seems quite the same. I think that's the exact same as the spell mastery from the 2014 Player's Handbook. A good feature, very helpful. At 18th level, a level 1 and a level 2 spell, they're not going to be really the most impressive effect, but they will be still helpful effects. There are some 1st and 2nd level spells that would be great to cast at will. Shield, Misty Step, protection from evil and good, magic missile, endless automatic hitting damage. Now, I haven't really looked much at the spells themselves. I know that some of them have been revised and changed. I know some of them are drastic changes. Some of them are just small changes, and others have stayed exactly the same. So I don't know if I'll be able to get to many wizard spells in this video. Spells kind of deserve their own video. I did read in here a somewhat significant change to spell casting in the circumstance of casting more than one spell per turn. You cannot expend more than one spell slot on a turn. On any turn, right? Not just your turn, but on any turn, you cannot expend more than one spell slot. So previously it was, if on your turn you use a bonus action spell, you cannot also do a one action spell that's first level or higher. That's a spell slot. Now it's just you can't do more than one spell slot cast on your turn. So what that would mean is if there's a rogue who's got a readied shot with his bow trying to sneak attack you, and it's your turn, and you cast whatever spell, let's say you're in combat and you cast a fireball against some other enemies, that rogue can then shoot you from hiding, and you cannot use a reaction to cast your shield spell on your turn because you already spent a spell slot casting fireball. Or when you're casting fireball, an enemy mage casts counterspell on you, you cannot use a reaction then to cast counterspell and counter the enemy's counterspell. And I did read counterspell in here during my browsing around, and it was revised. It's been majorly changed. It's not really counterspell anymore. It's memory lapse if they fail a con save. In other words, the enemy casts counterspell on your spell, you make a constitution save. If you fail, the spell doesn't take effect, but you don't lose the spell slot. So it's not a hard counter anymore. There really isn't any reason to upcast it unless you just were out of third level spell slots. It's kind of lame. I don't particularly like it. Oh, look at this. There's a little additional paragraph dangling over on the next column for the spell mastery. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can study your spell book and replace one of those spells with an eligible spell the same level from the book. So you can swap out your spell mastery spells. Really good feature, though. By 18th level, your ability to have like tons of scrolls and other ways to just kind of draw upon any kind of magical effect you need for any situation, you already are going to be pretty good at that. I'll keep it at B tier. Level 19, Epic Boon. You gain an Epic Boon feat or another feat of your choice for which you qualify. Boon of Spell Recall is recommended. Let's check out these Epic Boon feats and see what this is all about. So I'm immediately noticing that the Epic Boon feats also give you that increase of one ability score of your choice by 1, though this time they say up to a maximum of 30. Wow. Boon of Spell Recall, Epic Boon feat. You gain the following benefits. Ability score increase. Increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1 to a maximum of 30. Free casting. Whenever you cast a spell with a level 1 through 4 slot, roll 1d4. If the number you roll is the same as the slot's level, the slot isn't expended. All right, so what does that mean? Does that mean every first, second, third, or fourth level spell that you cast, there's a 25% chance that it won't expend your spell slot? I don't know why that effect would have a prerequisite of level 19. That's an effect that would be really cool and helpful at lower levels and even mid levels, but at level 19, you're not really hurting for spell slots. And like I said, you can easily get lower level spell scrolls compared to the amount of money and the amount of treasure and wealth you have at level 19. First through fourth level spell scrolls are insignificantly cheap. Let me look through some of these other epic boons and see if there's one that seems even better. Boon of Dimensional Travel. Increase one ability score of choice by 1 up to a max of 30. Blink Steps. Immediately after you take the attack action or the magic action, you can teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. That's a pretty powerful effect. Is it something that you would have to be level 19 or higher to be able to access? Situationally, that's very powerful, but by level 19, I don't see that situation coming up all too often. If there's a creature that you're fighting that can't deal with a difference of 30 feet of mobility per turn, that creature's probably just screwed anyways. Again, this effect would be very powerful and very helpful at low levels and at mid levels. By level 19, it's decent-ish. Epic Boon of Energy Resistance. Increase one ability score of your choice by 1 up to a maximum of 30. You gain 2 resistances of the following damage types of your choice. Acid, cold, fire, so it's all the non-weapon damage stuff. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can change your choices. Energy redirection. So with this, you choose, okay, I get resistance with fire and cold. An enemy hits you with fire or cold, and you can take your reaction to redirect a beam of that to another enemy within 60 feet. And it's a con-based DC, and it's a dex save to try to avoid it. 2d12 plus con modifier damage. Good effects, helpful effects, really nice, would be extremely useful and helpful at mid and low levels. By level 19, so I'm not going to sit here and read through every single epic boon feat. They're not super impressing me. They're not bad, they're just kind of okay-ish. Really the good thing about 19th level wizard is that you get another 6th level spell slot, and that's can be some pretty powerful stuff. Level 19 epic boon wizard feature, I'm going to give that a C tier, B tier. It's around there. Just based off the 2 that I read, I'm going to go with C tier. There's, okay, a bit situational. Nothing that really impresses me. I would hope for something else, but not bad. So I'll give it C tier. Level 20, the capstone of the general wizard signature spells. Oh my gosh, is this just the same signature spells as before? Choose 2 level 3 spells in your spellbook as signature spells. You always have these spells prepared. You can cast each of them once at level 3 without expending a spell slot. When you do so, you can't cast them in this way again until you finished a shorter long rest. To cast them at higher levels, you must expend a spell slot. Well, that's disappointing. The same as it was before, and like before, I'm going to give that a D tier. Really would want more at the epic climax of the, iconic lore master, arcane master class of D&D. Wizard subclasses. So I find it interesting that the book just literally calls them subclasses now. In the 2014 book, they didn't use that kind of modern gamer lingo. It would refer to, arcane tradition, bardic college, primal path, a more evocative, prose-based kind of in-world flavor. Now it's just kind of, they're subclasses, that's what they are, kind of a meta sound to it. Each of the subclasses has its own illustration, which that's cool. I can definitely appreciate each subclass having its own illustration. That's cool to get to see them all here, and they're rendered with like a bit of background, and they're kind of in action. The art direction, the art style, like the tone and the look and the vibe of it all is, like I said before, not quite my cup of tea. Very busy, very, very flashy, taking bits of real world stuff, like, oh, it was just regular real world glasses on this tiefling wizard, and she doesn't even really look like a tiefling. It's just kind of a human with pink skin and 2 horns coming out of her hair, with kind of World of Warcrafty comic book, very shiny and clean digital. I'm sure it markets well to a general audience, to a pop audience, just not quite really my preference. Okay, had to cast a light spell there. Now let's get on to the wizard subclasses. As I mentioned in the new player's handbook, every single class gets 4 subclasses. So that means some classes now have more subclasses than in the 2014 player's handbook, and some, like the wizard, have less. So we're missing half of the spell schools. It's a little strange, a little awkward, but let's just bear through it and see what it is. Abjurer. Shield companions and banish foes. Shield companions. I think you'd want to primarily, or at least first and foremost, shield yourself. Your study of magic is focused on spells that block, banish, or protect, ending harmful effects, banishing evil influences, and protecting the weak. Abjurers are sought when baleful spirits require exorcism, when locals must be guarded against magical spying, and when portals to other planes of existence must be closed. Adventuring parties value abjurers for the protection they provide against a variety of hostile magic and other attacks. Okay, level 3, Abjuration Savant. Choose 2 wizard spells from the Abjuration School, each of which must be no higher than level 2. So this way that they're doing the level 1, level 2, the way they're writing that gets extra confusing now with the spell levels. It was already confusing, and now it's like doubly confusing, because someone reads that and you're like, a level 2 spell for your level 2 wizard. No, the level 2 spell for your level 3 wizard and your level 4 wizard, and then at level 5 wizard you're getting level 3 spells. They really should have a better way of formatting that. Anyways, you add them to your spellbook for free. In addition, whenever you gain access to a new level of spell slot in this class, you can add one wizard spell from the Abjuration School to your spellbook for free. Chosen spell must be a level for which you have spell slots. Okay, kind of a minor feature, but it just helps reinforce the fact that Abjuration is your focus. Even though this is 5th edition, so you're not going to be defeating your enemies with Abjuration. You're the Abjurer focus, that's your main thing, but you're still gonna have to defeat them with explosions and fire and lightning, or maybe some kind of petrification from transmutation, but that's not till much higher levels. I don't know, that's just kind of a general gripe I have with 5e, that magic users don't have enough ways to defeat their enemies with like non-direct damage magic, especially at the low levels. So Abjuration Savant, I don't know, I'll give it a C tier. It's okay, it's helpful, kind of reinforces the theme, but level 3, Arcane Ward. Okay, let's see, what have they done with Arcane Ward? You can weave magic around yourself for protection. When you cast an Abjuration spell with a spell slot, you can simultaneously use a strand of the spell's magic to create a magical ward on yourself that lasts until you finish a long rest. The ward has a hit point maximum equal to twice your wizard level plus your intelligence modifier. Whenever you take damage, the ward takes the damage instead, and if you have resistance or vulnerabilities, apply them before reducing the ward's hit points. If the damage reduces the ward to 0 hit points, you take the remaining damage. While the ward has 0 hit points, it can't absorb damage, but its magic still remains. Whenever you cast an Abjuration spell with a spell slot, the ward regains a number of hit points equal to twice the level of the spell slot. Alternatively, as a bonus action, you can expend a spell slot. The ward regains a number of hit points equal to twice the level of the spell slot expended. Once you create the ward, you can't create it again until you finish a long rest. So the only change I can see between this feature and the 2014 version of it is that your resistances and vulnerabilities apply to the damage that's going into the ward. Basically, the ward shares your resistances and vulnerabilities. That's overall a bit of an improvement, slightly stronger, because you're more likely to have a resistance than a vulnerability. It's not very often that player characters suffer vulnerabilities, but there are plenty of ways to get resistance and even like an ongoing resistance from a magic item. Pretty good feature, solid, very useful, very helpful, definitely is going to increase your survivability. I give it an A tier. Level 6, Projected Ward. When a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself takes damage, you can take a reaction to cause your arcane ward to absorb that damage. If this damage reduces the ward to 0 hit points, the warded creature takes any remaining damage. Same thing with resistances and vulnerabilities. Just basically you use a reaction to let your arcane ward help out, absorb some of the damage from an ally within 30 feet of you. Good, helpful. How often are you always going to be within 30 feet of the person that you need to ward? That's certainly debatable. It's a bit circumstantial, a bit situational. I'll give it a B tier. Good, but not always going to be helpful. Level 10, Spellbreaker. You always have Counterspell and Dispel Magic prepared. In addition, you can cast Dispel Magic as a bonus action, and you can add your proficiency bonus to its ability check. When you cast either spell with the spell slot, the slot isn't expended if the spell fails to stop a spell. That's quite good. That is quite good. Now, it is a bit situational. It does rely on you being in a situation where there is enemy magic, but it's not that situational, especially at 10th level. That's something that you will use with some regularity, and those can be very helpful. Dispelling enemy magic, dispelling hostile magical effects and spells. The counterspell in this book, like I said, I'm not a big fan of it, and it's like you're using your spell slot, but it doesn't eat up the enemy's spell slot, so it's definitely diminishing returns. I should probably read Dispel Magic and see if that's been changed. Okay, so Dispel Magic, as far as I can tell, is the exact same. It looks identical for all intents and purposes, which is fine. Dispel Magic was very good. Being able to cast it as a bonus action and add your proficiency bonus to the ability check that you might have to make with it. This is good. I think just this feature on its own, I would give A tier. This is a very solid feature. though it is slightly situational. It's not a rare situation. It's a pretty common situation. It's just the new counterspell that I guess that's the part that's making me feel a little bit funky and not super excited. But the feature itself is great. Level 14, spell resistance. You have advantage on saving throws against spells, and you have resistance to the damage of spells. I think that's the exact same as 2014. Yeah, that's the exact same. Keep in mind it's not magic resistance, so you don't get advantage on saving throws against other kinds of magical effects, just against spells, and you have resistance to all spell damage. Fantastic feature, excellent feature, exceedingly helpful and strong, S tier without a doubt. So overall, the Abjurer is solid. I'd say it seems to be a small improvement over the 2014 Abjurer. Not a world of difference, but a slight improvement. Next we have the Diviner. Learn the secrets of the multiverse. Oh, yeah, don't you just want to get right into the multiverse secrets? The counsel of a diviner is sought by those who want a clearer understanding of the past, present, and future. As a diviner, you strive to part the veils of space, time, and consciousness. You work to master spells of discernment, remote viewing, supernatural knowledge, and foresight. Level 3, Divination Savant. Choose 2 wizard spells from the Divination School. Okay, so it's just like Abjuration Savant, but for divination spells. So you get like some additional free divination spells added to your spell book as you know, at 3rd level, and then whenever you reach another level in the class, in which you get a new level of spell slot. Level 3, Portent. Oh, the legendary Portent. Let's see what they've done to Portent. That was a fantastic feature before. Glimpses of the future begin to press on your awareness. Whenever you finish a long rest, roll 2 d20s, record the numbers. You can replace any d20 test, so that just basically means any d20 roll. Attack, ability check, saving throw. Made by you or a creature that you can see. You choose to do so before the roll. You can replace the roll in this way only once per turn. Each foretelling roll can be used only once. You finish a long rest, you lose any unused foretelling rolls. Okay, so Portent is still the same. It's a fantastic feature. You alter you or your allies' rolls at just that right crucial moment to succeed, or you alter your enemy's roll at just the right crucial moment so that they experience terrible failure. It's a fantastic feature, very powerful. S tier without a doubt. Level 6, Expert Divination. Casting divination spells comes so easily to you that it expends only a fraction of your spellcasting efforts, whatever those might be. Whenever you cast a divination spell using a level 2 plus spell slot, I really don't like the way that's worded, a 2nd level spell or higher, you regain 1 expended spell slot. The slot you regain must be of a level lower than the slot you expended and can't be higher than level 5. It's a great feature, very helpful, very practical, something you're going to use pretty often. It's the same as it was in 2014, and I'll give it a ranking of a A tier. Well done. Level 10, the Third Eye. You can increase the powers of your perception. As a bonus action, choose one of the following benefits, which last until you start a shorter long rest. Until you start a shorter long rest. You can't use this feature again until you finish a shorter long rest. So I guess that means while you're resting, during the rest, it doesn't apply. So you can pick either Dark Vision out to 120 feet, Greater Comprehension where you can read any language, or See Invisibility where you cast See Invisibility without expending a spell slot. So in the 2014 version, it said the benefit lasts until you get incapacitated or until you take a shorter long rest. So I guess there was a little bit of confusion on the wording, though they've done away with the incapacitated bit, turning it off. They also seem to have removed one of the options. There was an ability to see ethereal. You could see like 60 feet out into the ethereal plane, but that's been removed. I'm just confused. Why does this effect end when you start a rest? You would want these things during a rest. You might be on watch and you'll want the dark vision or the See Invisibility to be on the lookout for lurking monsters. Obviously there was some reason why it was designed in this way, but it's just not clear. I'm not seeing it. So if you guys know why that is, leave a comment and let me know why the benefit you picked would go away when you start a rest, when that's a moment when you would want to have that benefit still affecting you. Another revision I've noticed is that it's only a bonus action to activate the Third Eye benefit, whereas previously it was like a regular action, a full-on action. It's a good feature, a little bit weird, a little wonky there, but not bad. I'll give it a B tier. And 14th level, Greater Portent. The visions in your dreams intensify and paint a more accurate picture in your mind of what is to come. You roll 3d20s when you do the Portent feature rather than just 2d20s. So that's a nice upgrade to Portent. Doesn't make a staggering alteration to it, just a nice upgrade, a nice improvement. I'll give it, I'll go with A tier. That might be a little on the generous side, but Portent is just such a powerful effect. So Diviner overall is solid as well, and much like what I saw with the Abjurer, in general, I would say it is a small improvement over the 2014 version. All right, moving on. Now we are on the Evoker. Create explosive elemental effects. Your studies focus on magic that creates powerful elemental effects such as bitter cold, searing flame, rolling thunder, crackling lightning, and burning acid. Some evokers find employment in military forces, serving as artillery. Others use their power to protect others, while some seek their own gain. Okay. Level 3, Evocation Savant. It's the same as the Savant feature we saw. I guess we're going to see that repeated with each of these spell schools. Makes sense. You get extra prepared evocation spells. Totally fits, so that's cool. Level 3, Potent Cantrip. Your damaging cantrips affect even creatures that avoid the brunt of the effect. When you cast a cantrip at a creature and you miss with the attack roll, or the target succeeds on a saving throw against the cantrip, the target takes half the cantrip's damage if it has any, but suffers no additional effects from the cantrip. That is an improvement. Previously, it was only on the failed saving throw cantrips, which were sort of limited. Now it also applies if you miss with an attack roll cantrip. Really good feature. So the bit of the upgrade in there, plus you're getting it at 3rd level. Previously, you got it at 6th level. That's a bit of an improvement on the potent cantrip. It has even more potency now. 6th level, Sculpt Spells. You can create pockets of relative safety within the effects of your evocations. When you cast an evocation spell that affects other creatures that you can see, you can choose a number of them equal to 1 plus the spell's level. The chosen creatures automatically succeed on their saving throws against the spell, and they take no damage if they would normally take half damage on a successful save. So as far as I can tell, that's the same or effectively the same as it was in the 2014 handbook, other than just the level got swapped around on it. It's 6th level now, so a little bit higher. It's a good effect. It's helpful. It's not amazing. Plenty of wizards and spellcasters just in general cast area effect spells and don't usually have a problem with, not hitting their allies. So you could probably, use specific tactics with some allies and coordinate some ways to make the most usage out of it possible. But in general, it's not that incredible. So I'll give it a B tier. Level 10, Empowered Evocation. Whenever you cast a wizard spell from the Evocation School, you can add your intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll of that spell. That's the same as it was in the 2014. They had to clarify the original one a little bit, and so this just has it already spelled out in a more clear way, so good job with the clarification. Really nice effect, quite powerful. I'll go ahead and give that a A tier. And 14th level, Over Channel. So I've played an Evoker, a high level Evoker, in a fairly recent campaign, and so I used these features, obviously the original versions of them. Over Channel is whoo-hoo-hoo. Let's see if they've tampered with it. You can increase the power of your spells. When you cast a wizard spell with a spell slot of levels 1 through 5 that deals damage, you can deal maximum damage with that spell on the turn you cast it. The first time you do so, you suffer no adverse effects. But when you use this feature again before finishing a long rest, you take 2d12 necrotic damage for each level of the spell slot immediately after you cast it. This damage ignores resistance and immunity. So it's almost a blood magic feature here. Each time you use this feature again before finishing a long rest, the necrotic damage per spell level increases by 1d12. One of the most powerful, in terms of damage, wizard effects that I've ever seen. It stayed the same as it was previously, so I'm kind of glad they didn't tamper with it. It's an interesting effect, especially when you get into the harming yourself kind of blood magic end of it. So S tier, undoubtedly an S tier. One of my biggest criticisms with D&D is that the magic doesn't really feel as magical as it could. It oftentimes feels safe, predictable, formulaic. Overchannel is one of those rare features that breaks out of that. And now your magic can feel dangerous. You can feel like you are actually doing something with the magic instead of just casting this sort of prefabricated, prepackaged spell. Now you are the one who is manipulating the forces of magic, which really I think is the allure of magic, to begin with. The fact that you yourself are tampering with reality or wielding the forces of the cosmos to your own will. And yet there is a price that could be paid. There is a dangerousness to it. So that really makes Overchannel a rare type of feature that gives that sense of magic being something truly powerful and something that you yourself are tampering with the weave of it. All right, and we are on to the fourth and final wizard subclass in here, the Illusionist. Weave subtle spells of deception. You specialize in magic that dazzles the senses and tricks the mind, and the illusions you craft make the impossible seem real. And the illustration for the subclass is like a fantastical and cartoonified version of a real-world magician, like a real-world stage magician. Even has like magical poker cards floating through the air. Level 3, Illusion Savant. Same Savant feature like we saw before with the others, where you get some additional illusion spells into your spellbook. Also level 3, Improved Illusions. You can cast illusion spells without providing verbal components, and if an illusion spell you cast has a range of 10 plus feet, the range increases by 60 feet. You also know the Minor Illusion cantrip. If you already know it, you can learn a different wizard cantrip of your choice. Doesn't count against the number of cantrips you know. You can create both a sound and an image with a single casting of Minor Illusion, and you can cast it as a bonus action. Well, this is fantastic. Minor Illusion is one of my favorite cantrips in 5th edition, and being able to cast it with sound and visual elements and as a bonus action is, wow, that is just fantastic. I love creative spells like Minor Illusion and Prestidigitation and Mold Earth, things where you can really just kind of let your imagination run wild and come up with interesting solutions to problems, or just play around sometimes with magical antics. This is fun, it's flavorful, it encourages creativity and role-playing and creative solutions. It's effective, it's like a power increase in the spell. I'm gonna give this an S tier, way to go. Level 6, Phantasmal Creatures. You always have the Summon Beast and Summon Fae spells prepared? But that's Conjuration, what? Whenever you cast either spell, you can change its school to Illusion, which causes the summoned creatures to appear spectral. You can cast the Illusion version of each spell without expending a spell slot, but casting it without a slot halves the creature's hit points. Once you cast either spell without a slot, you must finish a long rest before you can cast the spell this way again. I don't know about this one, guys. So it's basically saying once per long rest each, you can cast Summon Beast and Summon Fae as an illusion spell. And it's the same effect, but they look spectral. And then otherwise, you just always have Summon Beast and Summon Fae conjuration spells prepared. But you're not a conjurer, you're an illusionist. In fact, I would argue that conjuration and illusion are opposites. Conjuration summons or creates real things, whereas illusion creates unreal things, figments and phantasms. And otherwise the spell effect is just the same. Like it's not an illusion, it's a physical thing attacking them and doing its slashing damage or whatever. Summon Beast, Conjuration. You summon a bestial spirit, and when it hits, it deals piercing damage. I'm really torn on this one, guys. Like, the flavor and the reasoning behind it is a bit weird, a bit incoherent and wonky. Also, it's using that new style of summon spells that began with like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, where you're not actually summoning like a ready monster, like an actual monster from the world, like a creature from the monster manual. You've got this like template block of this who knows what the hell it is monster, and you just kind of like plug in your proficiency bonus and stuff into it to determine how powerful it is, and they're not really that powerful. They're not particularly great summon spells. Kind of nonplussed. I wish this one would have been done differently. I'm going to give it a B tier. Let's move along. Level 10, Illusory Self. When a creature hits you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to interpose an illusory duplicate of yourself between the attacker and yourself. The attack automatically misses you, then the illusion dissipates. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest, though you can restore your use of it by expending a level 2+ spell slot. No action required. 10th level, use your reaction, make someone automatically miss you with their attack. The first time you do it doesn't require any spell slot. After that, it requires a level 2 or higher spell slot. It's basically the same as it was in the 2014 Player's Handbook, though it's a little better now because you can sacrifice spell slots for no action to regain its use. Overall, it's good. It's quite good. I could see sometimes it not being the best thing ever, not exactly what you would want, especially if you're playing an illusionist who's slipping about and concealing yourself and lurking, and plus you're a wizard, so you're already, hanging back and letting the, like the melee characters engage the monsters. So I'm sure you're gonna have moments where you wish you had something else, some other like active illusion thing that you were using. But there will also be plenty of moments where it could potentially save your life. It could certainly save your hit points. So I'm gonna go with A tier. I think that's on the generous side, but I'll do A tier. 14th level, Illusory Reality. You have learned to weave shadow magic into your illusions to give them a semi-reality. When you cast an illusion spell with a spell slot, you can choose one inanimate non-magical object that is part of the illusion to make that object real. You can do this on your turn as bonus action while the spell is ongoing. The object remains real for 1 minute, during which it can't deal damage or give any conditions. For example, you can create an illusion of a bridge over a chasm, then make it real to cross it. So the effect is really cool. It is a little bit of a bummer that like 2 of your illusionist features have to do with like making illusions not really illusions and giving them like a physical, tangible, material effect. I think this illusory reality is the same as it was in 2014. As far as I can recall, that's the same effect. And it is a cool effect. It's another one of those, you can use the power of your imagination and your own ingenuity to create some kind of solution to a situation. I feel like it's one of those that I'm going to give an A tier, being generous. I think in the best case scenarios, and even in the moderately good case scenarios, it's going to be really effective, helpful, fun, flavorful. But there are going to be times in which either you're not using it, it's not that helpful, you kind of struggle to find a way to apply it to your current situation. There are some people that have a gripe with illusion magic, saying that it's kind of GM dependent, and if your game master isn't so good or so cool with handling illusory effects and the way that NPCs and monsters might react to them, then illusion isn't as good anymore. I do have to wonder if that played into the designer's choice to make 2 of the illusionist features have to do with making illusion things have real physical effects. Whatever, I'll go with that. Illusionist is a bit of a mixed bag for me. Overall, it is good. It's good and it's effective and it's fun. It's probably the most like creative and flavorful one of these 4. So I like it a lot for that. I'm thinking here how I would rank these 4 wizard subclasses. So we do not have Conjurer, Enchanter, Necromancer, or Transmuter. And I can only presume that whatever the next book is, that's like a player's option source book, right? Like the Xanathar's Guide to 2024 D&D is going to present to us those additional 4 subclasses for the 4 additional wizard schools. If I tally up the points here, Illusionist, Evoker, Diviner, and Abjurer all got 23 points. So the designer did a good job of balancing the effectiveness and the fun and creative potential of all of these subclass features. So that's pretty cool. I wonder if the other subclasses are going to be that way. I wonder if that's been pulled off all throughout this book. It's really hard for me to rate them then, since they're all kind of neck and neck. Usually what I do for a tiebreaker is the subclass that gets the S tier feature soonest, right? Like whoever gets access to the best features soonest wins out. And I think that's a good tiebreaker because more people will get to enjoy it. So that gives us Diviner in first place, Illusionist in second place, like just a split hair behind, and then Evoker and Abjurer actually would be tied for third place, but they're all so neck and neck. If you think one is clearly better than the other, or if you have a strong preference, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts or your assessment on it. I'm going to briefly read through and skim through some of like the key iconic wizard spells and see what they've done spell-wise in this new book. All right, Fireball is exactly the same, still incredibly powerful and potent. And the fireball artwork on here is actually pretty cool. Charm Person is the same as well, and that's kind of good as always. I just noticed right next to it, Chill Touch is slightly more powerful. The damage die is a D10 now instead of a D8, though it doesn't have that additional effect against undead. Fly is still the same. Burning Hands is the same. Scorching Ray is the same. Shield is the same, or most of these just look the same. Aha, with Find Familiar, you can now summon any beast that has a challenge rating of 0. And it looks like it's just a bonus action to see through the familiar's eyes instead of one action. So a nice little upgrade there. Find Familiar is quite a popular spell with some people. Meteor Swarm seems to be the same. Mage Armor looks the same. Magic Missile looks the same. Melf's Acid Arrow looks the same. A little disappointed there. I always thought that one needed a bit of improvement in 5e. Toll the Dead looks the same. That's a quite powerful cantrip. Wish has been updated. It doesn't look incredibly different, but it has a lot of like GM help and clarifications and a few caveats, such as, you know, the Lady of Pain or Sigil being affected. She could cause your wish to fail. Ooh, Witch Bolt got much improved. That was a spell that really needed improvement. It's a 60-foot range now instead of 30 feet. And the arc of lightning connects even if you miss the target. And it's just a bonus action on subsequent turns to deal that 1d12 lightning damage. Wow, Witch Bolt got a major improvement. Way to go. All right, so there's a bunch of spells and a bunch of stuff in the new player's handbook that I'll need to take time to parse through. So the wizard overall, I would say, seems like a slight improvement. That's the general gist I've been getting as I've been going through the new player's handbook. You know, overall, if I look at the entire thing, net, there is more improvement than things getting worse. A lot of things are just more effective, a little more powerful, especially things that maybe were a little wonky previously. The layout's a little bit more practical and user-friendly, so that's cool to see. There are a number of other things, like I said, that they're not really much of an improvement, though. Some things are just kind of whatever, a little shuffling around, and there's some kind of little trade-off. Maybe you lose a little bit of the coherence or some feature that you liked previously. Then I come across things here and there, like the counterspell, for example, where I don't like it. I think it's worse. I think I can make an argument as to why it's worse. And the art style, that's my biggest thing that I don't like about it. It's just so flashy, so video gamey, so Disney, so Marvel. It's like it's just trying to cash grab any kind of pop culture trend. Most of the characters in there are just so happy looking, like they're all just this kind of giddy, slapstick, whimsical, happy, jokey, everyone's friends and everyone's getting along. It keeps making me think of Cocomelon, because it's like this world where just like everyone is always smiling and everyone's just happy and fair and virtuous and so conscious and so nice. The artists are very, very talented. This is no knock against the artists themselves and their skill and their ability at illustrating. And I know the artists are following the art directing and it's their job. So this is in no way me trying to tear down any artist. I would never want to do that. But yeah, the art directing end is just so, it's so cluttery, it's so busy, it's so hodgepodgey. And none of it stays with me. There haven't been any pieces that I've come across where it just like grabs me, where it like leaves an impression on me, and I think, wow, and it like has that effect, that kind of heart and soul effect. Nothing seems like iconic, like that iconic image that's going to endure and like mean something, and people will remember it. It'll live on in their minds and their hearts. But I haven't seen a lot of the book. There's many pages I have not laid eyes upon yet. So here, my first foray into the 2024 Player's Handbook. Hope you enjoyed this. And as always, I appreciate everyone very much for your support. In particular, everybody who is a supporter of mine over on Patreon. I want to give a special mention to Lucas Mesmo, Adam Wood, Nick Thy Pirate King, Jared Primont, Locke, Nicholas A., Technicolor Shale, Robert Brashini, Ben R., Till Wrench, and Tornado. You guys are awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, that's all I have for now. I think that'll wrap it up. Until next time, my brave companions, may your adventures be many.